covering all 4 major sports in the District of Champions. It's the DC Crossover Podcast with your hosts, Mike Cerrone and Ben Simpson.
Hello and welcome to episode number 103 of the DC Crossover. I am Ben Simpson. That is Mike Cerrone.
That's me.
You can follow the show on Twitter at the DC Crossover and at Cerrone16. And we also encourage you to download the app that's with the Contender. That's Contender with a K. Download that app. It's completely free, and you can listen to the show as well as other programs about DC sports and Chicago sports. Download the Contender app. That is one of the best places to listen to the show and consume a variety of hosts. You heard last week one of the hosts on Chicago, John Z, who he retweeted and he liked the tweet, but no direct comment from John Z about us playing his song last episode. I was kind of expecting a little bit more. I was hoping for a little back and forth, maybe
a little banter.
Maybe our own recorded song John Z dedicates to us. Nothing. The guy's stone cold, Mike. He didn't give us any props or anything.
Well, I'm a little shocked by that too, because I didn't see the tweet that you put out. Obviously, we've mentioned time and time again that you're the one who handles our Twitter. That's the thing, is you would think that he would say like, "Hey guys, thanks for shouting me out," or what could I do next?
Nod, say, thanks guys.
Suggestions of what song he could do next to parody or something like that, or cover. But I mean, I don't know.
He retweeted it. He retweeted and he liked it because all I said was on this, it was our tweet. I said on this week's episode we did a little Contender Network cross promotion and broke down John Z Sports parody song about Matt Nagy. The little clip itself has gotten about 100 views of our just through our Twitter and 3 likes, and one of them was John Z, but no comment, John Z. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess we got to do something more to impress John Z Sports. Give him a follow, though, people.
I want to see if the Washington Commanders, we are the Commanders.
We are the Commanders.
Jesus. I want to know if we're going to play, I don't know exactly what division we're playing, but if we play the Bears, we got to have John Z come up with a parody song or something about this huge matchup between Justin Fields and Carson Wentz.
Doug, so when you found out what the team name was, what was the initial reaction?
Well, the reaction was, I'm gonna hug the Commanders.
He's gonna hug the Commanders, man, just like everybody is.
Hug the Commanders.
Thanks, Craig.
No, I agree. If we get a Bears Commanders matchup, I want John Z. I want to do a live stream with John Z. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. I got to go back and check the schedule and see if they actually have a Bear. I don't think they do, though. I think they play the Packers.
Think so either. They know that they have the Lions. The Commanders are at the Lions this year.
Yeah, I think it's the Packers and the Lions are playing in that division.
So maybe next
this season.
We'll
see. Who knows? But yeah, it was definitely something. Now that you tell me that, it was definitely surprising for him not to have a little back and forth with us.
Just a little.
We sent him to Hollywood, so that's the least he could do.
Yeah, we let him go through for American Idol. Come on. You can also follow the Contender TikTok, by the way, if you so choose. They do occasionally tweet out clips of your boys here, and they usually do numbies. I mean, if you look at the one that we talked about,
Wait, did you say numbies?
Numbies. They do some numbies.
Never heard of that before. The numbies.
I mean, if you look at 3 of the last 4 videos on the Contender TikTok, by the way, you can follow them on TikTok, The Contender Sports, Contender with a K. You've got your boys with 209 views of us talking about John Z's parody. You got his video, which no shame in this, 9 views, but hey, algorithms, I'm not knocking you, John Z. Then you have our video right after that, which has 913 views, and then our video after that has 451. Your boys are doing numbies. We got to get a little props here from the Contender. We're single-handedly lifting the brand up. So follow them on TikTok and help your boys out by watching and liking and doing all that. I did want to say at the top of the show, Mike, real quick, just to switch gears for a sec. Gotcha. Well, actually, let me hear what you were going to say before I switch gears, because I know you had something to say.
It is kind of odd, though, because when you look at one of our videos, it has 916. And the funny thing about these views is that you can literally go on there and just click on and off every 2 seconds, and you'll
Which
get
we
a
don't
view.
do, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't do it. But the thing is, like 916 views on that one video talking about the stadium and stuff like that.
It wasn't even one of our better clips. It was just us talking about like they're moving from Landover to like terrible
Sterling.
traffic in Sterling.
Yeah. It's and that's the funny thing is it's 916 views or whatever it was, but they only have like 43 followers, and that just doesn't make any sense. Like you would think that the probability of having and a lot of those followers were already there. I mean, they might have gained maybe 7 or something like that, and that's
For You page, man. That algorithm, it's thrown it in front of people.
Yeah, there's got to be something that goes along with the FYP or something that they can get more followers. So again, yes, definitely go check out the Contender TikTok, the Contender with a K. Also check out their app, download the app as well, get us some numbers, and check out your boys here in the District of Columbia.
Yeah, and it costs nothing. Completely free, so just do it. I did want to mention before we get into the show, we have a lot to talk about, by the way, people. I mean, obviously, Wentz is the big topic of discussion, and baseball being back. We got some Nats talk, so we have a lot to talk about. But I just wanted to mention, Mike, I mean, so a couple crazy things here locally. You've got, of course, this weird weather storm that we had where it freaking snowed on Saturday. And keep in mind, the days before, it was like 65 and up. This week, it's going to go up to 70 degrees. But meanwhile, Saturday, you have this snowstorm that happened that kind of threw a wrench and everything. I think it's why I might be getting sick. It's because we went from like 70 down to 18 degrees. It's killing me. And then you have daylight savings time thrown in the mix, where it's just a nightmare. You're losing sleep in the mornings. It's dark, pitch black, dark out again. That stinks. If anybody of our listeners who have kids, you deal with this. I'm dealing with this right now where when it comes to daylight saving times, kids don't know what's going on. So for them, this just throws off their entire routine. My daughter she just doesn't go to bed at night anymore because it's super light out. She's like, we're doing numbies, Dad. Let's make a TikTok. Let's go have some fun. Let's throw the ball around. It's daylight. And I'm like, no, you got to go to bed. And it takes her forever to go to sleep. And then she's just a mess. It's just, it's just a disaster right now, Mike. You got the snow coming in. You got the daylight savings time. I might be getting sick. I'm just not happy right now. That's what I'm trying to say.
And the funny thing that I've always said on this show multiple times and to other people, I heard it said maybe years ago, maybe like a decade ago, where someone's like, "Oh, Virginia, the only state where you have all 4 seasons in a day." And I was like, that's actually pretty true. Because you think about it, for instance, today, we're recording this on a Monday. This morning, it was like 31 degrees.
Yeah, it was cold
freezing.
This morning.
I was freezing my nippies off.
Yeah.
And literally,
in your gym shorts outside, parents yelling at you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was. And that's the thing is, and they go, "Oh, why are you wearing shorts again, Mr. Cerrone?" Well, sorry, it's going to be 67 degrees in 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's
nice
like
out this afternoon.
So that's the thing is, a 30-degree difference in one day here is pain, but at the same time, that's what we get every single year. And that's the funny thing, like you said, is it snowed like, I don't know, a couple inches or whatever the heck it was. And then all of a sudden, like on Sunday night, it's all of a sudden 55 degrees. You're just like, sweet. That's
it's
awesome.
screwing me up with my thermostat in the house. It's like I don't know what to do with it. You're like, all right, if I put on the heat, next thing you know, it's going to be 70 degrees and I'm going to be boiling over. And then if I put on the AC, suddenly I'm freezing. I need a blanket because it's snowing outside. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I have the God, what is it called? Not the Ring, but the Nest, the Google Nest or whatever.
Yep.
So I can change it on my phone. And I'm constantly just moving it up a couple, bringing it down a couple, moving it up a couple. Yeah. Bill's gonna be through the roof. It's just the worst.
Well, the best thing about living in this condo complex is that my realtor, who's a family friend, she was like, you know what? I looked over some bills and stuff like that, and the energy usage for this place before I bought it. And she said that the person before me, their bills were not that high, mainly because of the sole fact that in the wintertime, the downstairs 2 levels, I'm on the 3rd floor, the downstairs 2 levels are the ones that like heat up their place a lot.
Sure, because, the heat rises.
Exactly. So basically, and then so mine is off a ton of the wintertime.
Right.
Once in a while I'll turn it on, but sometimes I'll use my fireplace for like 20 minutes, something like that, whatever. But the best part about it is that I literally hardly ever turn my heat on. My bills spike in the summer because air condition doesn't.
We're big
rise.
guys. We need the AC for sure.
And I kind of. I'm not gonna say I feel bad for the upstairs roommate or upstairs not roommate upstairs neighbor because of so fact that
they're crazy
certain reasons.
That's all
but I bet they have to turn theirs on. I'm like getting the happy medium of both the ones downstairs.
I never thought about that. That's not a bad. I mean, that's kind of a nice situation because of that heat rises. Like in our house too. It's like the upstairs gets pretty warm.
Right.
And that's where I throw on my fan above here that you can see in the picture if you're watching on YouTube. And I also have a box fan down here. Sometimes you just got to be blasting everything on. I don't like to be hot while I sleep. That's for sure. We could talk about this forever, honestly. But I did want to say before we hit out the rewind button, shout out to the legend. Mike, Mr. Entenmann, was it Charles C. Entenmann or something like that?
I don't know his initials exactly, but I believe it was Charles
Entenmann. Unfortunately passed away last week. And for those who have been long show historians, you recall that Mike and I in 2020 did the snack championship, the tournament where we had all the sweet snacks and things like that. And the Entenmann brand was its own region, I believe, in the bracket, if I recall.
Yeah, we had a nice snack tournament, sweet snacks tournament. We called it up 2020. I still have the brackets in my phone. Basically, we had the Entenmanns, the Hostess, the Little Debbie, and there was one more that I'm missing. Which one was that? Anyways, and Entenmann's, that region had the 6th seed out of the 8 to move on, which was the chocolate chip cookies. Tasty Cake. That was the other one. Tasty Cake.
Yeah.
So we had a nice little tournament going on, and we had a bunch of guests on as well. I believe Michael Jenkins came on for that one as well.
Ian, my brother. We had a lot of cast of characters on that tournament.
Oh yeah.
Which was a blast. But yeah, Entenmann's was a big part of that tournament. It's a big part of our lives. I'm a big Entenmann's guy. Love a lot of their products. I grew up on their donuts. I mean, we had those donuts, like the powdered sugar, the box of the 3, where it's like the cinnamony one, like the powdered sugar one, and then the plain one.
Yep.
I'll tell you throw that thing on a plate, you warm it up for like 8 to 10 seconds, and then you dip that in a nice cold bowl of cereal and milk. You dip a little bit in there just to get a little bit of that cold with. Oh man, it's the greatest. That's my childhood right there.
Yeah, the chocolate chip cookies though won us didn't win the tournament, but they won their region of the bracket because those little silver dollar cookies or whatever that are
1,000.
I mean, they're chewy and chewy cookies
soft,
are the best. Yeah, so soft.
You don't really get the soft cookies that a lot of the time in packaged cookies. Like it's really tough to nail a soft cookie. Otherwise, you get your Chips Ahoy or your Oreo and things like that where they're tougher. But to get a really well done soft cookie that doesn't like harden or things like that, I don't know what they do to make it work. But Entenmann's quality brand there.
Quality and. So when you're looking at the Chips Ahoy Chewy in the red packaging, that's a really good one.
Yeah, that's
but the same time, it's not as good as Entenmann's, and it's not as good as Mrs. Fields either, because those are the ones that are like, I mean, you heat it up for 2 seconds, and all of a sudden the chocolate's melting, and like it's kind of like
put it
those
on some
commercials.
ice cream and
oh man,
go to town.
Man,
but Mike's
pour
gonna
one
have to
out.
Do that after the show. He's on a diet, so
yikes! I'm starving right now, and I had a stupid
we'll get
berry
into that.
smoothie.
We'll get into that if we have some time today. But let's hit the rewind machine here. Dive into the previous week in DC sports before we get into our main segments. And this is for those folks who may have missed some of these games over the week, especially sometimes with West Coast schedules and things like that. When the Wizards were out west, sometimes maybe you missed the game. Well, we're here to break it down for you. Starting with the Commanders, though, of course, we are going to spend some time talking about Carson Wentz, who obviously DC was able to get in their trade with the Colts. Washington got Carson Wentz, a 2nd-round pick and a 7th-round pick. The Colts got a 2nd, a 3rd, and a conditional 3rd. And we'll dive into more of this in a bit. But, Mike, the Caps seemingly have been getting back on track. And that's what we like to see, especially this late in the season. A pretty solid week for the Caps.
You could say the Caps right now are on kind of a heater. They had a nice little Canadian road trip, so to speak. On Tuesday, they beat Calgary 5-4. Ovi scored twice, moved into a tie for third place on the NHL's career goal list with Jaromir Jagr at 766. Gretzky is first with 894, so still a little ways away, but how Ovi's been playing this season, you can say that he's going to get very, very close to that. Gordie Howe is in second with 801. The Caps scored 3 times in the third period to take down Calgary 5-4. Their third straight win at the time. Connor Sheary and Anthony Mantha also scores. That's good to see Mantha get on the board as well. Vitek Vanecek with 31 saves, and he improves to 13-7-5 on the season. On Wednesday, they lost to Edmonton 4-3 in overtime. That was a back-to-back game, and Ilya Samsonov started that game, had 37 saves, so not a bad output from him. But they still managed to get the 1 point against Connor McDavid and company, who scored the overtime winner for the Oilers. Backstrom also reached a milestone with his 1,000th point, which is really nice to see as well. But then they got back off the schneid for that one little brief game in overtime against Edmonton by beating Vancouver in overtime 4-3. Lars Eller scores 42 seconds into overtime. Nice little shot by him as well. It feels like he kind of got lucky because it kind of deflected a little bit off the goalie's pad. But at the same time, it's better to be lucky than good in most situations. Evgeny Kuznetsov scored 3 goals, so his second career hat trick. One of the goals was kind of a weird bounce behind the goal. I think it bounced off one of the Canucks players and then kind of like chested it off him. I couldn't really see in the replay exactly who it hit off because they didn't really have a great angle at it. And then one of the goals that he scored, Ovechkin basically was about to score it. So 3 goals for Kuzi is nice, but at the same time,
the hat trick. He'll take the hat trick.
Yeah, same time he kind of stole one from Ovi. But and I like how everyone on Twitter was like, "Oh man, he can't even just let the other Russian get a goal for once." So, it's like, okay, let's be honest.
All right, yeah.
But
Let's take the win, people.
Yeah, Ovi, exactly. I don't know why they were going after him. We won. Ovi with 2 assists, though. The Caps are 4-0-1 in their last 5 games, so a great week and extended week, you could say, with the 4-0-1 in the last 5 games. And Vitek stopped 23 shots in that game as well to keep his good play going. Now, moving on to the Washington Wizards, who did not really have a great week against the LA teams.
Yeah, I get to say the unfun one. By the way, you said the phrase "a Canadian road trip." That sounds like a weird sex position or something. It just came to my mind when you said it. You said it earlier. You're like, you said the Canadian road trip. That sounds like that could be okay. We're not gonna get into it. It just came into my mind. It's all right. We're still keeping this PG.
Oh,
the Washington Wizards. I just wanted to make you laugh. 29-37, still miraculously in 11th place in the Eastern Conference. I mean, this team, I don't know, they can't do anything to drop out of 11th spot apparently because they keep losing and they've been 11th. I haven't changed that on our sheet for like a month. Wednesday, so this was the West Coast road trip. Wednesday, losing to the Clippers, 115-109. Kristaps Porzingis, 19 points. Solid day for him. Again, starting to get his footing with this team. Rui put up 18. The Wiz shot 10 of 27 from deep, but unfortunately losing the game by 6. Friday, LeBron, Mike's favorite NBA player, 50 points in that one. Oldest player to have multiple 50-point games in a season. Pretty wild stat there. Kuzma with 23, Kispert with 21, his career high, including hitting 5 threes, so starting to kind of come on nicely there, the rookie. But the loss, 122-109, 2.5 games back for the final playoff spot at that time. And then on Saturday, losing to the Blazers, 127-118. Josh Hart put up a 44-piece by the Blazers there. And the Wiz lose again. So 0-3 week for them. They are really trying hard to not make the playoffs. That is their goal, I guess, right now, which is fine with us. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And then last but not least, DC United, Vamos United. Unfortunately, the fun times came to an end, Mike, because on that Saturday, with all the rain, the snow, all that stuff, they had to actually play a soccer game in that weather, and it was freezing cold, it looked like, on the field. I don't know how the fans were able to stick it out. I will say, real quick, I watched the broadcast of this one, and they do a little pregame. You would find this funny. So they do a little pregame show, and you've got like your desk host. Her name's Claudia Pagan, just like the Dan Coco or whatever, where they're at the desk and they're talking before the game. She brings on the two broadcast crews, the TV crew and then the radio crew, to kind of dissect the game here in the pregame show. And none of them can hear each other, apparently. Like they talked about, they're like, they're having trouble. They're having technical difficulties. So it was one of the funniest and awkward things to watch where one group is talking and then the other group just starts talking and they're talking over each other. And then they start being quiet. And then at one point, the radio guy or whoever is making like a really good point, and the host apparently can't hear him either because she starts going in. He's in the middle of talking, and she's like, "All right, well that about does it for the pregame show here." And he stops, and he's like, "Wait, no, I had something to say." It was one of the most awkward things. I was cringing. I texted my wife. I was just like, "This is the most cringe thing I've ever seen in my life." This pregame show for DC United. So apparently not. They're still working out the kinks there. But DC United loses to Chicago. And you and I, real quick though, you and I have been obviously broadcasters for a long time, and we've experienced a lot of different things. And I mean, I remember specifically the weirdest thing about broadcasting once was I was broadcasting a game, and the guys in the truck, I could hear them through my headphones. Normally they would, during like gameplay, they would maybe sometimes be muted, or I wouldn't be on their channel, so they could talk to their camera people and I wouldn't hear it. But for this situation, I could hear them the entire time. So it's very weird to be calling a game and having somebody be talking in your ear the entire game. That was one of the worst experiences for me, for sure. And I was like 18 or something too.
Yeah. And that's the weird thing when it comes to like these productions, that the technology is there. Like, I don't understand how you can go into a broadcast and be like, all right, we're just going to try to wing it and tell these people like, Pedro Gomez is going to be talking, and all of a sudden A-Rod's going to be in the background saying like something random else, or like, I just don't get it. It's one of those situations that you just kind of scratch your head and say, weren't you guys kind of prepared for this?
Yeah, like weren't there tests, like sound checks and things like that? Like especially for an NBC Sports Washington presentation. I mean, that's it's a local station, but it's a professional broadcast station. You'd think they would figure this out.
It's also like a news station too. And what tilts me the most with news productions? I don't watch the news that often anymore. But like if someone's live out in the field, like I understand. Like if someone's talking on the phone, like I can reply back to them immediately, kind of like what we're doing right now.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking.
But then someone's out in the field.
The pause is so funny.
And you have like somebody say like, "So Jim, like, what's the weather like out there?" And all of a sudden the guy's just like,
let's do it. Hold on,
like
let's do it. Let's do it. So
okay.
you're in the studio. I'm out in the field. All right.
Okay. So we're talking about the Washington Commanders, and we have Ben Simpson out at the new UPS Stadium in Sterling, Virginia. Ben, we're talking about the Commanders and their trade with Carson Wentz, or for Carson Wentz, I should say. Even newscasters mess up sometimes. And
just get to the question. Like, just say something so I can do the bit.
So what are you thinking about this trade, and what's the buzz like out there at UPS Stadium?
Yeah, guys. Yeah, I did hear about that. I mean, that is literally how long the pause is sometimes. It's comical. It's so weird. I don't know. I agree with you. It's like, I don't know how they haven't figured that out. I understand like 7-second delays and things like that for national TV in case some kid like takes his, little Johnny out or something like that. Like, there's certain
little Johnny.
There's certain things to kind of help, like, because live television, but it's like, I don't get the gaps either. It's terrible. Anyways, back to DC United real quick. Not a lot to say on this one. Lost 2-0 on a terrible night. The funny thing going into this game, I was like, oh, we got a good shot at this because Chicago had won 4 road games from 2019 to 2021, just 4 times on the road. And DC United loses that one. And despite outshooting the Fire But yeah, I mean, 2-1 to start the year. This is a team that predicted to not be that great. So it's awesome to kind of win 2 of your first 3 games, and they still have some exciting young talent. So we're going to be continuing to cover them here on the show. So let's move into the big topic of discussion here.
We are the Commanders.
And that is, of course, your new quarterback, people, Carson Wentz, which now, especially when you look at some of the news that's come out today and yesterday in the quarterback market and some guys getting picked up and things like that, you got to think that if the Commanders had waited, they might have had to pick through some not so great candidates at this point compared to what they were able to get with Carson Wentz. And now that we've had some time to think about this deal, since it's been like a week or so, I mean, these stuff always happens like the day after we record the podcast. Like that just ends up being the case. We record on a Monday and like big news happens on a Tuesday. So it's been some time, and now we can kind of think about it with some of that time. My initial reaction, Mike, is, and you and I were both kind of saying this over text, is I think while Carson Wentz isn't necessarily, obviously is not an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or one of those biggest names, he still gives this team a really good shot at a 10-win season, a playoff berth. There's a lot to like with Carson Wentz. I mean, especially being able to stretch the field, which I feel like we haven't had a quarterback able to stretch the field in a long time. Meanwhile, we've got weapons that can hopefully accommodate that, and hopefully we bring in some more weapons. And obviously, he's a guy who can run a little bit. He's a guy that he's tall, obviously. He somewhat protects the football at times. He did pretty well with that last year. So I think that overall, I'm pretty pleased, and we've been just asking for some sort of upgrade over Heineke, and we knew if this team drafted a quarterback, we'd have to wait a few years for that to even pan out. Now you immediately have a guy who could be good and could give this team a chance to win a bad division of football and make the playoffs. So I'm still pretty happy about this. What about you?
So I was on the fence at the beginning of the trade because I was like, the knocks on him are true, but also there's that upside that is still there. Yes, he did have the ACL injury, which I don't know if that's really what has derailed his career for the most part here, but I'm just kind of still on the fence. Now, you want to have an opinion one way or the other and stick to your guns and whatnot. If I had to choose, I would say that I'm more 60-40, 65-35 for the move, right. Mainly because it's an upgrade no matter what.
Yes.
People are so hell-bent on saying, like, man, we could have got this guy. We could have tried, for more picks for Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. Okay, it's not a guarantee, okay, because these guys don't, they still have some input on where they go. The Seattle Seahawks were going to get 3 number 1s from us and possibly a player too, but they ended up going with 2 number 1s, number 2, and like a number 5 or 2 number 2s or something like that, and like 3 players and
Nuts.
One of the best young tight ends.
It's a lot.
So it was a really good trade for them to accept, and they didn't want to keep their franchise quarterback for the last decade in the NFC, so they had to play him for the most part. But I just think that you're looking at a situation with Carson Wentz and saying that this situation is a tryout. This situation is a 1-year
An expensive
deal.
Tryout, but a tryout for sure.
Yes. They still had a lot of cap space so they could make this move and also not really have to part with any players to minimize the cap hit or anything like that. Mind you, I think that a lot of teams, I would say maybe at least 2 or 3 teams, now I'm not saying this for certain, were in the running for Carson Wentz as well.
Yeah.
Because I listened to an interview from an indie reporter recently that said that they were willing to spend $15 million to get him out of town. Now that's a knock on him because it's like, okay, you're trying to get rid of your quarterback that just went 27-7 with TDs and interceptions. But I think that if they're willing to do that, the Commanders aren't going to sit there and say like, oh yeah, we'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. I think that that probably was the deterring factor between them, Washington, and also the other teams saying, hey, we'll just take it on because we have the cap space to do it. And also, not a knock on Taylor Heineke, but Carson Wentz was possibly an MVP candidate 5 years ago or so, back in 2017. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's who he is now, because he isn't. No. But when you're looking at comparative stats, they heavily favor Carson Wentz. You're looking at completions and attempts. His percentage is slightly lower than Taylor Heineke, but Taylor Heineke was doing a lot of more dump offs. Because you can see obviously 150 more yards for Carson
JD
Wentz.
McKissick wheel,
exactly.
Things like
a lot of the yardages and stuff like that, as we know from watching Taylor Heineke, came from those type of plays. But you're seeing 27 touchdowns, which is 7 more. 8 less picks. I just think that when you're looking at Carson Wentz's upside and everything like that, I even said it to my buddies that he's a top 20 quarterback. He could possibly be a top 15. I know he was ranked in the top 20. I believe it might have been by PFF. I'm not exactly sure in the last 4 years, except for the 2020 season. Besides that one, from 2017 all the way until last season, 4 out of 5 years, he's been ranked in the top 20 of quarterbacks.
Right.
So when you're looking at it, yes, are the knocks on him true? They could be, skewed a little bit, but they are true a little bit, intangibles and different things like that when it comes to making the right decision sometimes.
Are the knocks against him any worse than the knocks you hear about guys like Jameis Winston and some of these other guys that were possibly in the running for that this Commanders team would possibly go after? I feel like you're completely right. There are knocks against him, just like there are with any quarterback, but I feel like it's not, the bad does not outweigh the good, and his bad is not necessarily worse than any of these other options we had.
Right.
I feel like this team did the best with the options that they had, and I feel like they made it maybe not the best. I mean, obviously we would have loved to have Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, but I think for the situation, it's pretty good. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's not bad. We're somewhere in that middle ground where it's like, hey, this could actually be okay,
But besides Jonathan Taylor, and maybe their offensive line is slightly better than ours, if you go by rankings and different things like that, because yes, our offensive line, everyone thinks it's kind of nubs, but at the same time, we're always ranked the last 3 or 4 years, we've been ranked in the top 10 in offensive line.
Brendan Sheriff. So
so we'll see about that and everything like that when it comes down to it. But I just think that when you're looking at 3,500 yards for Carson Wentz last year in just over 500 attempts, the funny thing about it is you're looking at a quarterback that was throwing to Michael Pittman. Okay, that's number one. And you're also looking at him throwing to a T.Y. Hilton who was hurt half the season pretty much, and a Jack Doyle, and you weren't really seeing, and Mo Alley Cox.
Local product.
Yeah, local product. Yeah, for playing basketball. And that's just the thing is you're looking at their offensive weapons besides Jonathan Taylor.
There's no Terry McLaurin on that team.
Exactly. There's no Terry McLaurin. There's no J.D. McKissick on that team that are going to, run for after the catch or making a miraculous catch or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just think that our weapons, when it comes to the passing game, are better for the fact that we can go out there and make, those decisions. And that's why people wanted Jameis Winston, because they're like, oh, Jameis Winston can be, let go and go out there and throw 40 touchdowns. He might throw 30 picks, but we have those people that can, make those catches, because you're seeing, us possibly go out and get a wide receiver in the draft or whatever it may be, to the point where we can go out and try to complement Terry McLaurin like we were trying to last year, Curtis Samuel, if he somehow comes back ever. And we got other pieces that I think is a lot more depth than what Indy had. And I think that was a knock on Carson Wentz when it shouldn't have been, because you're looking at, for instance, Jonathan Taylor have a bad game against the Jags. He's running for 70 yards, which is like a huge downgrade from what his average was. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, Carson, you got to go out there and win us this game with some nubs receivers like Michael Pittman, who had, he had a handful of good games, but it's easy to have a handful of good games if you have 20 targets. I just think that,
he got some unnecessary blame, it seems like.
Exactly. It's something that I think that if it improves your team and you get a quarterback, which again, a buddy of mine was sitting there saying, "Oh, he's trash. He's trash." And I was like, he's not trash. Like,
No.
you know how hard it is to be a quarterback in the NFL?
And when was the last time this team went and got a quarterback? I mean, Donovan McNabb. Like, that's the last time I can even remember where they went out and got a guy. Otherwise it's been, Kirk Cousins, RG3. It's been guys that they
Alex Smith is probably the
that's
last
true.
one.
They did. Yeah, they did go and get him. But
if you
doesn't
compare it
happen
to
that often,
But if you compare it to Alex Smith, for instance, Alex Smith at that point in his career was more of a game manager and everything like that.
Yeah.
And no one liked calling him a game manager because he did make some decent throws, but he was more of that short to intermediate throw kind of guy.
The safe option at QB. Wentz has the ability to break games open every now and then. He's got the arm for it,
He can throw the deep ball with the best of them, but at the same time, you're looking at it and saying, Carson Wentz I kept telling my buddies that he's a rung above a game manager, which is good because he can make those few throws that you need. It's just a matter of, is he going to make the right decision to throw it or not at that time, whatever the situation may be. I just think, and I believe that if he can go out there and yes, it's a 1-year deal for us because if we don't like him, we cut him and we have no cap space, rendered. But you're looking at it and saying, if somehow this pans out, you can restructure his deal, or you can keep the deal for the next 2 years. 20-some million is not it's not the end of the world because you see Patrick Mahomes making like 48 million or whatever, and now Aaron Rodgers making 50 at like age 50.
right.
So I just think that
and Wentz is only 29, which is nice too.
Yeah. So when it comes down to this deal, it's not a horrible deal because of the sole fact that he improves our wins. Okay, we won 7 games with Taylor Heineke. Okay. Yeah. And the first game didn't really matter because the sole fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick got hurt and Taylor Heineke was like, well, I guess I got to go in now. A guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick who never got hurt. So Taylor Heineke wasn't probably ready for that game. But I just think that coming down to this, the nitty gritty here, I think it's a better trade than people are giving credit for because we didn't give up a ton for a guy that possibly has that upside to be the quarterback for the future. Who knows? We'll have to see. But I mean, top 15, top 20 quarterback. I mean, everyone wants a quarterback like that because 27-7 is pretty damn good.
Yeah, and I think who this will really help as well? Deebo Brown, who's a guy who has explosive speed, but was on a team last year where the guy doesn't really throw the deep ball much, and when he does, he throws it into triple coverage. So I think this team has been looking for other weapons besides Terry McLaurin. I think Deebo Brown could possibly shine under this acquisition as well, but I still want them to go get another wide receiver, of course, either in the draft or, in free agency or whatever. But we'll see. The options are a little limited there. So, yeah, overall, I think anytime these big moves happen, it's hard to gauge the true feeling of the fan base via Twitter because I think people's initial reaction, and we do this on the show a lot of the time too. I mean, I'm not going to say we don't. Sometimes we lean more towards the negative at times, just being fans,
right.
Like we're so used to losing that it's like it's hard to be super positive about moves. But I do think as people have thought about it more, and from what I'm seeing on Twitter more and more, is I think people have come around to this move and have really looked at it in a more positive light and I think it gives the fan base a little more hope heading into this year. If they just did, all right, we're riding with Heineke and then we're going to draft somebody and try to bring them along and throw them into the fire, I think we're looking at another, couple years before the quarterback position is settled fully. But with this, you kind of have an option that, like you said, it could be a tryout. It could be more, or it could turn into our quarterback for the next 5 years. And who knows? We're going to have to be able to, but we'll have that option now versus a young quarterback who hopefully would pan out, may not pan out, and then a freaking XFL guy who, again, he tries really hard, but he's just not. He just doesn't cut it, And
I think a lot of people actually go on the fact that, the big names were circulating out there for so long with Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, this and that, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
The big names are and Deshaun Watson. So everyone got so hyped up for that. But then when they saw this move, people were like, man, this
kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, this move sucks. It's like I said, a buddy of mine starts talking about how he's trash and all that stuff. And I was like, dude, where did he go to college? Well, I don't know. I was like, he won 4 national titles in college at North Dakota State. Okay.
Yeah.
He's not a bad quarterback.
No,
okay.
No.
People just don't understand that whatever improves your football team that costs you the least amount of risk, it is a great move. Yeah. And I'm not saying this is a great trade, but I'm saying it's a much better positive trade.
We can see the upside.
Exactly.
The positive path is there. Will it all work out? We don't know for sure, and we could easily be in week 8 or something, and you and I may going, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. But you never know.
But this, not to interrupt you, but this basically opens the door for our draft, because now everyone is not going to think, okay, we're going to draft a quarterback first or whatever. We're going to try to get a possible skill player or get the best interior lineman to replace Sheriff.
Best available.
And that's the thing is, we're going to go into the second and third round thinking of, hey, maybe some of these guys that are on the fence for the draft itself, the quarterbacks that are on the fence that, people think they're more projects or this or that. Maybe we can get one of those guys. They'll still be on a rookie contract. And then somehow Carson Wentz, if he works out, then we can have him for another year or two or whatever it may be. And they can work something out to the point where you could get this guy along, kind of like a Jordan Love or an Aaron Rodgers and all those kind of players that played behind, their starting quarterback, so on and so forth, and kind of open up the draft now to the point where now we can look at something other than quarterback, because next year's draft, as we all know, is a deeper quarterback draft.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're right. It gives the team some flexibility and some options. So we're excited about that. We'll be keeping our eye on the NFL free agency and things like that, while we are also about a month or so away from the draft. So we'll see there. We'll switch gears and talk a little baseball for once.
The
baseball.
Washington Nationals.
Oh, the lockout is over. And the feeding frenzy is upon us. This is exactly what I said was going to happen, and what other people were obviously saying was going to happen. As soon as the lockout ends, you're going to be seeing moves left and right, and we're seeing quite a lot of them across the league as a whole. Still waiting to see if Freddie Freeman's going to sign with the Dodgers. The Braves got Matt Olson today. The Yankees are looking at Carlos Correa. I mean, there's a lot going on. So it's a lot to follow. But for here locally, the Washington Nationals have made some interesting moves, Mike. And the biggest one, of course, is 41-year-old Nelson Cruz, who signed a 1-year, $15 million deal with the Nats. And I believe there's a mutual option for a second year. A guy who I feel like has been around 10 different teams in the league at this point, and he's basically a hired gun. You bring him in on your team, he's going to give you 15, 20 bombs in the first half, and then you can decide if you want to flip him or to a contender, or if you want to, try to keep him for the rest of the year. I mean, this is what his career has turned into, because he still produces. In 2021, he spent the first half with Minnesota and the latter half with the Rays as they tried to make their run. In 513 at-bats, he hit 32 bombs, 86 RBI, 831 OPS. He can still just rake. And I think it's kind of an exciting move for a Nats team that all we've been talking about is rebuild. Young guys or veterans on small contracts and things like that. They went out and got a bat that has a lot of pop and is fun for the fans to see, along with Juan Soto. So you got to love that 1-2 punch there in the middle lineup, especially with the universal DH. This one, I was excited about this one, Mike, because I knew that this team would either maybe possibly bring back a guy like Kyle Schwarber or things like that. There were a couple DH options on the market. I think this was a pretty good one.
I just think that when you're looking at a move like this, it is not a move that is going to make you a contender. It's not a move that people should be clamoring for. That it's an amazing move for the ball club or anything like that.
Right.
People like you and I, who are a little bit more plugged in than a casual fan, kind of see it for what it is. And what we see is it's something to put butts in the seats, because he's going to hit bombs. You know that him and Josh Bell are probably going to hit, and actually Juan Soto for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, Bell, Cruz, and Soto in your middle of your lineup. Hey, you're going to see some home runs when you go out to the ballpark and buy your ticket. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell tickets.
Right. If you look at all three of those guys, and if Nelson Cruz possibly plays for us the entire year, which we are going to get into in a second, I just think that you look at, that's three guys that can hit 30 plus bombs, which is going to be fun to watch. But at the same time, this move, as we, this is not guaranteed, it's unofficial for our opinion, but this move was more so made to get more prospects.
Yeah.
Because this team is not going to make a run. This team, let's be honest here. this team's not going to make a run for the pennant. It's not going to make a run for the World Series or anything of that nature. We got too many young guys, and we're signing a lot of guys that are kind of past their primes for the most part, and just kind of filling in the spots as we, and I think you said it best today off the air was, we're trying to get vets that are surrounding these younger guys like a Keibert Ruiz and Luis Garcia and even Carter Keyboom and stuff like that, because we're trying to get these guys put on the right path to stardom, to success, to a ball club that can make moves here within the next 3 or 4 years. And that's the thing about this team, is that Nelson Cruz is brought in here to put some butts in the seats, and hopefully if he can sound off and have a great first half or whatever, because he can hit the ball out of the ballpark. This ballpark is not like Coors Field where you can go hit 55 bombs by doing a pop fly, but you can literally, in this ballpark, I would say it's middle of the road where you can hit bombs out. And if he can go out there and, like you said, maybe hit 15 or 16 or kind of have like a Kyle Schwarber type of first half, then we can trade him and get maybe a prospect or two or whatever for basically nothing, because they're going to take on his contract. And then we're going to get a couple more prospects to put in the works. And that's what you're seeing with a lot of these other, right-handed pitchers that we've been picking up, Steve Cishek and our old friend Anibal Sanchez and so on and so forth. These type of guys.
John Doolittle.
Oh, yeah, Doolittle too. Jeez Louise. But you're seeing some of these guys that, and look at D. Gordon. I'm going to call him D. Gordon because D. Strange Gordon is going to take forever to say.
Right.
Look at a guy like that who can be a mentor with guys with stolen bases and slap hits and different things like that, because he was perfect at that in Miami and other places as well. So you're looking at it and saying that all these moves aren't going to move the needle for the casual fan, but they are going to move the needle for guys like us who are trying to see and envision what Mike Rizzo is doing. And so far, I think what he's done with all these moves is A, trying to surround the young guys with vets, and B, trying to prove that we can get some of these vets and turn them into more prospects for the future. So again, we're trying to build around Juan Soto, and I think so far what Mike Rizzo has done has basically prepared us for the future.
Yeah, and the hope is you don't want to necessarily go spend too much money, because if you are going to re-sign Juan Soto to a long-term deal, you want to have the money to do so. So you're not going to go spend it on a Carlos Correa or whoever. You're going to sign 41-year-olds and 35-year-olds and 38-year-olds. I mean, it's kind of nuts, the age group that we're bringing in right now. But yeah, I think flipping for prospects is where this team is right now. Because, I mean, even looking at the top prospects in the system, really only the top three are the main names: Cade Cavalli, Jackson Rutledge, and then, of course, Brady House, who was drafted in the last draft, who's looked at as an exciting young shortstop prospect who we're not going to even see for a couple of years, probably till 2024. Besides that, there's some decent talent in the system, but we need more. You really got to just have that farm system flush with talent. This team is normally ranked towards the bottom of the league in rankings for farm systems. I think even heading into last season, they were 30th on Keith Law's 2021 farm system. You got to think going into this season, this team is going to be hopefully you want to at least be top 15 in the league and hopefully even climbing. So if you're not winning championships, and you want to be filling that farm system, but it's pretty wild, Mike, seeing these names that, like, if this was 6-7 years ago, these were bigger names. Maikel Franco, D. Gordon. I mean, heck, Carl Edwards Jr. was pitching on those Cubs playoff teams. We saw him in the bullpen. Anibal Sanchez, of course. Aaron Sanchez, who had a lot of years in Toronto, but whose career just kind of got derailed with injuries. That's another guy where this team's kind of a low-risk move. You bring him in, you see what he has, you kick the tires. If he does perform well, you can flip him. If he performs badly, you just release him, and it's no sweat off your back. So I think that's the Nelson Cruz move there. So Nats fans can enjoy it. They can watch some tanks, but just don't fall into that trap of thinking that this team is going for it this year, because they're not.
Yep.
You look at these signings, they're not going for it. They're trying to put a somewhat competitive team on the field, but they're not going for it all. Looking at the one possible lineup that was thrown out there, I believe this is from Jesse Doherty, who covers the Nats. This was his possible lineup here. You have second baseman Cesar Hernandez, who was signed in this past, before the lockout, longtime veteran guy. You have Juan Soto, Nelson Cruz, Josh Bell, Keibert Ruiz, the everyday catcher, Luis Garcia at short, Lane Thomas in left, our pal Carter Keyboom at third, and our pal Victor Robles at center field. Two guys that have to have a good first half. Otherwise, I feel like their careers might be done. I mean, Victor Robles had some pretty bad innings last year. Carter Keyboom, obviously, on his last leg with this team. So those are the two guys that I'm kind of pained to have to watch, honestly. And Victor Robles, obviously, a lot of potential. We talk about him all the time on this show. Carter Keyboom, kind of the same thing. But those are the only two guys, Mike, where I feel like when their at-bats happen, I may have to switch the channel.
I mean, looking at the lineup, Juan Soto at the number 2 spot would actually be nice because unlike Nelson Cruz or Josh Bell, he can hit for extra bases.
Yeah.
And he can leg out those doubles and things like that in the gap. But I think that when it comes down to also Juan Soto, your best hitter and one of the best players in all of baseball, he needs more at bats. And, by rule, if you're batting in the second spot, you typically will get an extra at bat here and there. So looking at Nelson Cruz in the second and the third spot, that would be nice. Josh Bell can rake as well.
That's
so
a great middle of the lineup. And then Keibert Ruiz
it's
has
gonna be
a lot
fun.
of potential, and a switch hitter, I believe. So, there's some opportunities there.
I'm hoping that Luis Garcia and Carter Keyboom can lock down that left side because finally Luis Garcia is getting a chance on the left side because he was always thrown into that second base role, and everyone was like, "Oh, well, maybe he played over on the left side, but Trey Turner's over there and stuff like that." Now he's got his shot. Now we can actually see how he is with the glove at that shortstop spot. And Carter Keyboom, he just needs to improve in general and overall.
Something.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is you're literally getting a starting role on this professional organization's team rather than coming off the bench or anything like that. So Luis Garcia and Carter Keyboom have to show something now because now they got a full season to do it. And, I highly doubt that Carter Keyboom is going to get dealt at the deadline if he's not performing. I think they're just going to run out his contract and just have him as a bench
down
player.
In the minors, see if he can turn it around.
Right. But I think that Luis Garcia has something.
Yeah,
I think
he's
a better hitter.
Last year, 242 in 70 games. I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, so in that situation, you need him to have more bats, more games. I mean, that's less than half a season. So I'm hoping that now with him having a starting role, it's going to help him a lot in his progression. But going along with Victor Robles as well, Victor Robles is one of the premier outfielders in the entire baseball world. But you're looking at his hitting, like we've said, and he's basically going to go out there and almost be on par with Danny Espinosa. And that's the problem is Danny Espinosa back in the day had a great arm. That dude could rocket the ball across the diamond when he had to fill in, third base or shortstop or whatever. He was usually second base, but that guy had a rocket arm. He would strike out so many times they had to put him at the bottom of the lineup. So you're just looking at Victor Robles and hoping somehow this year clicks with the bat. And hopefully, like we said last year, he can possibly hit somewhere in between 250 and 265 or something like that.
That would be nice.
That's what we're hoping.
He's only done that a couple of times in his career, and last year 203 average. It was yikes. Now he's not eligible for free agency till 2025, so there's really not a lot you can do with Victor Robles. You got to just kind of ride it out a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. But a little baseball talk here is the season now like 25, 26 days away. It's coming up soon. Thank God.
Hey, the universal DH is awesome to have.
Yeah, I mean, we've been clamoring for it.
Yeah, now it's actually even for the AL and the NL. Now we're not going to Baltimore and saying, all right, well, now we get a DH. Who are we going to put there? Ryan Zimmerman, or so it's like, let's actually get a guy like Nelson
that
Cruz.
they come up with the universal DH the year, right after he retires. But now Nats fans, you're going to be the ones that complained about universal DH. You're going to be so much happier when you see Nelson Cruz just hit tanks because he's playing DH. The fact that you're going to be able to have a lineup of Josh Bell and Nelson Cruz in a lineup at the same time when maybe without a DH, you'd have to pick one of them to play first base on any given day. Now you can have both in your lineup. This is a good thing, people. This is a good thing. Let's hit up the final lap here, a chance to give some analysis on some other big stories in sports. 90 seconds on the clock. Here we go. Mike, March Madness begins on I guess technically Thursday, but even the pre-games happen soon too. 4 number 1 seeds: Gonzaga, Baylor, Arizona, and Kansas. Any one of those 4 your champion pick, Mike?
Yes, it's the Wildcats of Arizona.
Okay, that's a nice one. I have Baylor actually repeating this year.
Oh, wow.
That's my little prediction. Not many folks are picking that. So if they do make a run at this thing, I think I might win a bracket pool. Tom Brady, the second biggest news after March Madness is Tom Brady returning to Tampa, Mike. He unretired. It took him like 3 weeks to decide, you know what, I want to come back and not have another run at this thing because I don't think they'll compete for a championship. But he's back.
Well, I mean, you're looking at that entire division, and it's just kind of pathetic, and they've been falling down by the wayside. Every brick is falling. Calvin Ridley is leaving. Sean Payton's leaving. All these guys are leaving. So I think he looked at Tampa and was like, I guess I might as well come back because I'm guaranteed the playoffs.
I guess. Speaking of quarterbacks, Mike's favorite quarterback in the league, Kirk Cousins, extended, Mike. I mean, he must have the greatest agent in the history of football, Mike.
I don't know how it's possible. I mean, he has decent number. He's one of those guys that's a top 20, top 15 quarterback. So, I mean,
1 year, $35 million extension.
Geez, so we $35 million.
The Celtics celebrated Kevin Garnett and retired his number over the weekend in their game against Dallas. KG, the big ticket, Mike.
Big ticket. I mean, I used to love watching. I actually did a book report on KG once.
Nice.
Can you believe that? I did a book report when he was on the T-Wolves.
Nice. And the funny whole thing is like that wasn't even the project. The project was about like volcanoes. And Mike comes in with a Kevin Garnett the 3 board thing?
The trifold board.
The trifold board of KG. Incredible player, obviously. Always was fun to watch back in the day. One of the best trash talkers in the league. And then last but not least, NFC East news here. The Cowboys re-signed Michael Gallup. $62.5 million deal.
I don't understand the Cowboys because they just re-sign everybody for huge deals and then they have to release or cut people. I mean, they traded Amari Cooper, who is 10 times the player as Michael Gallup is, and they traded him for a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, I would trade a 3rd-round pick for Amari Cooper. I mean, a 5th rounder? That's nubs.
That's nuts. That is your final app as we move into our trivia question here. Again, this is where Mike and I both ask each other trivia questions. I ask him Detroit sports because that's the game that I have. He asks me DC. We do pretty well at this. And I will go first this time. So let's go with this question here. What Swedish defenseman became the first European-born and trained NHL captain to win the Stanley Cup? I'm not, and when I ask you these questions, I know it's something that is in somewhere in your brain. Like I'm not going to ask you like the 1950 Detroit Red Wings, like 3rd string, right winger. Like I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you what Swedish defenseman became the first European-born and trained NHL captain to win the Stanley Cup.
Swedish-born. Usually the Swedes have Strom in the name.
Maybe not.
I mean, you're looking at Nicholas Backstrom. He's Swedish.
He is Swedish.
The other Stroms out there.
A lot of strumming on that guitar.
I'm going to go with Lindstrom.
That is exactly right. You figured it out via the strum. 20 years in the NHL with the Red Wings, which is wild. 20 years with them.
Yes.
Now the vice president of hockey operations for the team.
It's Henrik, right?
No, it's Nicholas Lindstrom.
Nicholas Lindstrom. Jeez, all these Nicholases.
You're thinking of Henrik Zetterberg, maybe?
I was thinking about Henrik
Lundqvist.
Lundqvist. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
These foreigners, man, they got some wild names.
Some wild names for sure. So yeah, that's Lindstrom. With the
it's not Ben Simpson.
No, certainly
so
not.
much simpler. All righty, so I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to let you choose. I'm going to do both of them. Not today, but I'll do one today and the other one next time.
All right,
so I'm going to let you choose between, let's see. I'm going to let you choose between A or D.
D.
Okay. So this is a Washington Redskins question.
Oh, boy.
It's actually pretty easy for the most part. Combining the jersey numbers of Skins safeties Sean Taylor and Laron Landry yielded what nickname for the territory they patrolled?
It's a great question. I'm not a fan of the team, so I'm not. I mean, I am a fan on the show, but I wasn't a fan of the team at the time.
What number is Sean Taylor?
I mean, I don't freaking remember. 20 something.
21.
21, yeah.
Okay, and I'm not going to give you Laron's number, but think of I'll let you have a hint, or not a hint.
Yeah,
I'll
give
let
me
you have
LeBron
a question.
Landry. No, it's like I don't know what. So it's about the territory they cover. So it's like we cover the Grand Canyon.
It's like a national thing that people know about,
right?
But it's heavily guarded.
Fort Knox.
No.
Alcatraz.
No.
Well, Alcatraz isn't even a working prison anymore.
It has a number in the name.
Pelham 123 wasn't that movie with
Denzel?
Denzel. Has a number in the name. What the heck does that mean?
Think of Independence Day.
Is it like the White House, Pennsylvania Avenue? I don't know.
Area 51.
Area 51? That's such a lame thing. That's so stupid.
Well, God rest his soul. It didn't last that long. I was
about to say, I'm not desecrating Sean. I'm not Jackson Mahomes dancing on Sean.
Laron Landry had the number 30.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Taylor,
It's a cool thing.
I have Sean Taylor's rookie jersey, which is 36.
Right. There you go. That's what
doesn't fit anymore.
No.
Doesn't fit anymore because Entenmann's. Thanks a lot, Charles.
It's all Entenmann's fault. No, that's a good question. I should have gotten that. I don't know. I grew up a Lions fan. I was following all the Lions games.
Right.
I was busy watching Joey Harrington throw passes into the
number 3
seats. He's terrible. I'm also bad with numbers. Numbers with me for jerseys and stuff. It's just never. Some guys like know everybody's numbers. I've just never been a numbers jersey guy.
Well, the other one's a Wizards question, so you might like next week's better.
All right, that'll be next week. All right, enough excuses. I got it wrong. I suck. The money line, sponsored by DraftKings. Speaking of sucking, Mike, last week, not a great week for you. 0-2 week on the money line. An even week for me, 1-1. So I am 2-2. Mike is 1-3. Let's see what happens this week because we have the wonderful March Madness to bet on. My lock this week, I'm going Illinois 7.5 over Mike's favorite college, Chattanooga, on Friday. I'm taking that 7.5 with Illinois. Illinois is a good team. I actually have them winning a couple games in the tourney, so I think they're going to take this one. And then my dog, there's a couple different dogs to look at, and as a Michigan State fan, I'm taking Colorado State 2.5 dogs against Michigan. I think it's a 6 and 11 seed or whatever it is.
I'm shocked that that's the line.
I know. I think it's because maybe so much money is going the Michigan way. That must be it. So I like the Colorado State 2.5 on that one. Michigan's not that good of a team, people. They lost a lot of games. They shouldn't even have been in the tournament, to be honest.
They lost 17 games.
They should not be in March Madness at all. But because they're Michigan, they're in. So, yeah. Their coach is busy punching other coaches. So, yeah.
I think he slapped him. I think he slapped him.
Yeah, that's your definition.
This is still weird. Geez, I did not know. I would have probably picked that one too. I forgot what my dog was last week. But at the same time, my lock, Virginia Tech, covering the spread in the second round. They were at a 14-point lead, and all of a sudden, the last 5 minutes, they decided not to score anything. So that screwed me over. So. Even though Go Hokies, they won the ACC tournament, so Go Hokies.
Shout out to them.
They play against Texas in the first round, an 11-6 matchup.
I have Hokies winning that one.
So do I. So my lock is USC 1.5 over Jim Larinaga, our old pals. Miami Hurricanes on Friday. I think Isaiah Mobley is going to go off on Miami. I think Miami's so inconsistent.
That's a good pick.
I mean, winning by 2, it shouldn't be that hard for USC. My dog's like a Colgate plus 7.5 because Wisconsin. I've heard a lot of things about Wisconsin. Looking at the brackets today and stuff like that, that they shouldn't be a number 3 seed. They should definitely be down probably a 5 or 6 seed. And they're overrated. So Colgate, I also heard that they are pretty good. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I read a lot about a lot of teams today.
A lot of
So
teams, a lot of teams
might be bleeding together.
Right.
But I think I heard that they shoot the ball really well from behind the arc. I think they shoot possibly like 40% or something like that. But again, that could be a totally different team.
Right.
But I'm going to go Colgate plus 7.5 over Wisconsin. Both games are on Friday.
That's my favorite part of March Madness is you suddenly become experts on teams you haven't seen a single second of, like Vermont or there's a San Francisco, University of San Francisco, and things like that. Like there's some teams where you're like you haven't seen a minute of them play. But you dive into the numbers, the numbies a little bit, and you start saying, okay, I think some of the experts are saying, South Dakota State might have a shot here. There's some upset picks. Heck, Oral Roberts was like, a 15 seed last year and won their first round game and busted some brackets. So you always got to throw some upsets in there. So I'm not hating on it. Colgate 7.5, dogs against Wisconsin, USC 1.5 over Miami. I have Illinois 7.5 over Chattanooga and Colorado State 2.5 or Michigan. Bet responsibly via DraftKings. That about does it for this one as we near one of my favorite times of the year, and that is March Madness, the big games. You got those stupid play-in games. I'm never a big fan of those, but on Thursday, starting at, I think, noon, right around noon, is when the real tournament starts. And that's when you throw the games up on the laptop while you're at work, throw it on the other screen, do whatever you can to watch the games, throw it on your phone, because that March Madness Live app is always, it's that one app where it's like you delete it when the tournament's done, you download it when the tournament's about to start up again. That's the only time I ever use that app, but it's for March Madness, where it shows you where all the games are and all that stuff. Free plug for them on the show there.
My co-teacher is bringing in his monitor.
That's
so
the way to do
we're going to have a nice 25-inch screen sitting right on the desk, sitting there watching some games in between the classes, or I should say during the classes. We'll just poke our head in.
Well, good luck to all of those who are slaving away in the cubes at their offices and trying to sneakily watch some games, because I certainly will be watching in my office. Luckily, my office has a door, so I can be like, hey, I got a couple of really important calls this afternoon. Shut that door, throw it on the TV. We're good to go.
Got to call Illinois.
Yeah, yeah. Got to call Illinois. You got to beat Chattanooga. But yeah, feel free to let us know who you decided to pick here, people. If you want to shoot us a tweet, at the DC Crossover or at Cerrone16. Download the Contender app, Contender with the K. It's free. And follow the show wherever you consume the content, either via podcast, Spotify, wherever, or you can also catch the show's video. Full video episodes are up on YouTube, so you can see our beautiful faces as we both try to lose some weight so we aren't so freaking fat.
I'm starving.
Yeah, Mike's starving. He's going to go get some Entenmann's cookies. And that about does it for this week's episode. We'll see you guys next time. Episode 103 in the books, the DC Crossover.